because of what's going on this evening. I don't think I'm going to stand on ceremony. So whenever you're ready.
You're on.
Okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good evening. It is October the 6th, meeting of the Town of Tuppendale Budget Committee. We have a quorum. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Will you join me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public input. Any none forthcoming? We'll be moving on to the review of the August organizational meeting minutes.
I had no comments.
I have none.
I move to accept the minutes. I second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, well, this is our chairman's comments. This is our first meeting of the substantive business of the year. Whereas we've got two new members, or at least new to this group. A couple of things I'd like to say as chairman. One is that I am not in favor of two things. I'm not in favor of tabling issues. I really like to get through the issue as best we can while we have the people, not necessarily this evening, but while we have the people here that address the issue. I'm also not real wild about reconsideration. So I'd like to make sure that as we go through with our deliberations that we're, if not all on the same page, at least all the questions have been answered. And so we can move and not have to go back and forth over the course of the fall into the winter. And with that, because it's a relatively simple evening tonight, and we'll get on to that, more on that when we get to the subcommittee's updates. We'll start with 4152. Which is assessing.
I have a question. Why was, well, I guess I probably know the answer. 2019, that number's so big, because that's the year they reevaluated.
They did the whole town evaluation.
And that, every 5 years, is there, should it be that?
It's either 5 or 10, I can't remember.
No, it's every 5.
Every
By
5.
statute, you have to do
Okay.
before.
Every 5 years.
Anything you want to remind us on this for us, Chip? Or?
No, it's just that it remains a little high, primarily because we have to continually review the property sales. And watching the sales that came in last Friday, 5 of the 7 were extremely higher than the assessed value. So DRA takes a look at that. So we're constantly having to watch that because we need to adjust for equalized valuation.
Okay. Any other questions on the assessing figure?
No. I move that we approve 4152 revaluation of property at $46,224.
I'll second that.
This is moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Moving on to 4199, which is other government. Any questions on this one?
The JLMC Safety Committee has
Mhm.
not spent any money since 2019. Does it need to be that high, Chip?
$2019 was about $145.84. That was last year. I'm not sure that there were any expenses that incurred 15 through 18 due to the way it was run. But I do know that the $145 was spent last year, so our expectation is it'll be about $150 this year.
This, I'm sorry, the CIP is just permit for printing, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
For many years, one of our members did it himself without charging for it. Now, every year, we have to pay for it.
That's fine.
I move that we approve 4199, other general government in the amount of $475.
I'll second that.
We moved and seconded. Further discussion? Those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Moving on to animal control, 4414. How's life with the dogs, Chip?
I'm not. I was thinking about taking on a dog catcher.
You know, that, the animal shelter thing there, is like, nothing has been expended this year on that.
Well, $756, I think is what it is, right? I'm not through the year yet. It's dues. I believe the balance of the dues has not been paid. So that'll be pretty close to the $1,500. As far as on the NHS PCAs that the line we're looking at her for the animal shelter.
Stray dogs picked up in town, go there.
Right. Right. And we've done a pretty good job of collecting on licensing, which is what drives that $250. So if you don't license your dog and you have to pick it up, we don't
Yeah,
keep it at the
yeah, so you have to be licensed when you pick it up.
Okay.
I move that we approve 4414 animal control in the amount of $1,750.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on, 4442. Direct assistance.
This is one where we made some adjustments over the previous year. Because we noticed that the need just didn't seem to be there for shelter, so we dropped that from 11,500 to 5,000. Fuel, we kept the same. Medical services at 500, we kept the same. We dropped food from 2,000 to 1,500. We're getting a lot of assistance from, and I'll finish up, telephone electric, we dropped from 5,000 to 2,500. We're getting a lot of assistance from local churches and civic organizations, so it seemed as though we didn't need to budget quite so heavy on that. So the last year's budget was 21,750, and this year's 12,250.
12,000 what?
250.
I've got to tell you, when I saw this, I was absolutely astounded because I thought if there was ever going to be a year
It would be.
that there would be a call.
Yeah, I've been watching it every week because I'm the welfare guy.
Yeah,
And we just haven't had the plans, which is really surprising given the economic conditions.
let's keep our fingers crossed it continues, not just for the town's sake, but for the individual's sake too.
Yeah.
I move that we approve 4442 direct assistance in the amount of $12,250.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you for cutting it, Chip.
Well,
Every little bit helps,
hopefully it all works out.
hopefully.
Moving on to 4583, patriotic purposes. This number has not changed forever.
Annual gift to the Legion.
That's at the Wolfboro Legion.
Yeah. Harriman Hale.
I didn't hear you.
It is the Harriman Hale Legion.
Building a cannon out in front campus.
With the COVID thing, are they doing anything or are they on hold? I think that their sign says something like, see you sometime, wear a mask and wash your hands, as if they're not doing anything. And
What's
I
this,
think
Legion?
a lot of those veterans are probably more susceptible. I don't know what the status of that is. Is the Elks that's on top of Track Road? I think that's shuttered too. I don't know.
Well, our expectation, I mean, we pledged $1,500 for them, so I think we need to budget it. But there's been a couple of instances where the Wolfboro Parks and Rec, for instance, we have yet to get a bill from them for the money that's in the Parks and Rec budget.
Chip, you're gonna have to speak up.
Oh, I'm sorry. There've been a couple other occasions where we've budgeted money in expectation of spending. The one that comes to mind is the Wolfboro Parks and Rec. And because they haven't had any Parks and Rec programs to speak of through the summer, they haven't sent us a bill. So will they before the end of the year? Probably not, or if they do, it might be less. The Legion, we're pledging $1,500. They may not need it, and they may not bill us for it, but we need to have it there, I believe.
What did they do? Did they do the Memorial Day flags this
Yeah.
year?
And all of the grave sites.
Okay, so that's pretty much where the money is gone to from a historical perspective anyway.
I know they're having trouble with their physical aspects of their building,
Mm-hmm.
and that they haven't been able to occupy it. It's a need.
It's a relatively new building.
Hmm?
I don't know what.
We're talking about the one on Center Street?
Yes.
Yeah, the old Legion.
The old,
Okay, I was thinking of the one.
yeah, no,
The Elks is relatively.
I heard it through the grapevine that there was, and, the Legion on a national basis, like a lot of us, they're all struggling for,
Yeah.
to maintain their various activities like baseball and of course the COVID is, so it's they're trying to to fulfill their mission, but I know they're having a problem doing it.
I would be of the opinion at least for one more year that we fund this, and then we'll see what happens after we hopefully get through this, whatever we're dealing with.
Yeah, it's true, because no one knows what the future of those things are, because
Well, exactly.
if this
Exactly.
nonsense continues, what they do is not going to be able to continue, so. Yeah.
I move that we approve 4583 patriotic purposes in the amount of $1,500.
I'll second that.
There's been moved and seconded. Do we have further discussion? Those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? We're now 4589, gifts and donations.
This is for the new members, a line item that, or a budget that enables the selectmen to recognize individuals in the community or individuals who've worked for the town with a nominal gift, if you will, for public service. Over the course of the last few years, some years we've spent more than others, but some years we've had more occasion to spend more. I'm sure we'll spend a little more of this $240 that's left. We've had a number of changes at the town office. I don't know if Heather's leaving is reflected in that $160, but I know that there was a luncheon, so it's things like that. We're gonna send Joe a gift, but he came back. We're gonna think about that.
We're happy to have you back, Joe.
Yes.
Rather have you back than give you a gift.
Good to be here.
I move we accept the budget for gifts and donations in the amount of $500, $45.89.
I'll second that.
Has been moved and seconded. Those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay. And a couple more, ones that are fairly obvious. One is 4711, long-term bond and notes, and this, of course, is our debt service on the fire station.
And it comes right off the spreadsheet, so
Yeah, pretty straightforward.
I move that we approve account 4711, long-term bonds and notes, in the amount of $153,711.
Second on that.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Not a lot of discussion on this one. Mind that we all mind so. Those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And finally, 4721, which is the interest on the previous bond note. This year for $26,792, which is gradually shrinking every year to get closer to the magic day when the building's paid off.
I move the acceptance of the general fund interest long-term bond in the amount of $26,792 at 4721.
I'll second that.
And has been moved and seconded. Further discussion? Forthcoming? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
And that is all the issues that we have to deal with this evening. Moving on to correspondence. I really don't have anything in correspondence.
Come up with something.
Helen pointed out to me that during the process of building the agenda, that we did not have a line item for CIP update, which I would like to add at this point. And if you want to enlighten us, please do.
Okay. The CIP has had at least 2 meetings, and the fire department presented their projects at one of them, and then the transfer station presented his projects at the other meeting. We're still in the process of coming up with the capital capacity for the year, but as usual, there will be plenty of projects lined up to overspend it.
Okay? That's it?
That's it.
Okay. Moving then on to Selectmen's update. Chip?
Okay, as you, we've obviously gone through some major budgets here tonight, but we've got a few more to go. What we have found out recently is that the cost of living rate increase won't be set until the 13th of October, at which point we have I believe the fire department budget's pretty well done, the police department's probably getting close to being done. The transfer station is done, with the exception of salaries, so you can have a look with your night the next time you come by. The other element is the health insurance. The rates won't be set until after the 20th of October. And we have got notification, sort of informal notification, that the general rates are dropping because for whatever reason people aren't going to the hospital or using medical services. They're staying home with their masks on.
Well, elective surgery, you had 6 months of essentially no elective surgery, so that's got to factor into things.
Yeah, and we've already been notified of a probable 2% reduction in the rate on the current policy. The state just changed over from Anthem to the other A,
Aetna?
Aetna, I believe. So we're exploring that as well, because there must have been some cost savings that the state would have changed. We've also had, in that same conversation, some significant changes in personnel, which changes our exposure as far as the insurance requirements are concerned. So that all should drive those numbers down. The COLA that we're looking at is, projected at 1.2%. I don't know where it'll end up, but it shouldn't be over 1.5, I wouldn't think, which is a pretty minimal amount overall. On the income side, we haven't gotten final verification on rooms and meals, but I see that as probably taking a hit. And it's
That's one of my questions for
it's a hit for
the next item down.
So that could be a negative effect. The other, there's been a change in the way you sell property, take taxes, so we have to factor that into other income, which is also on the income side of the ledger. And I'm not totally up to speed on it, but it has to do with making sure that the people whose property is taken end up getting the bulk of the money after the tax. There's a lot of legal and fees and that sort of thing, standardizing the interest rates. So we've got a little work to do there. So our income may be looking a little different this year. I think last year's income that we projected is coming in pretty close, with the exception of rooms and meals, which we haven't got quite yet.
Talk to us a little bit about the progress in the police station.
Right.
The reason I asked that is I went to Selectmen's meeting yesterday morning, and grants were discussed at the meeting. Have any of the grants that have been discussed been granted yet?
I believe one of them has, I thought it was, can you remind me of
USDA $250,000.
Right, so you did get the $250,000.
Yep.
There was 250,000 there. You've got 650 in round figures put away. Now you're up to 9.
Is that including the quarter, that 250?
No, that's all the warrant articles that have happened over the course of the years. I think it's up around 650.
600,000 capital in capital reserve?
I believe it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't think it was. I thought it
We've been
was.
doing it for quite a while.
I understand that, but I thought it was in the four
Yeah, it
plus
was last
range,
year.
same where the hybrid was. I didn't know we had that much. That's great. I didn't know it was that much.
But we're still not there. So we're as you remember being at the meeting on Monday, we're engaged a grant writer to try to explore getting some more grants out there. I think the lesson learned from the library is you need to do these projects in a year. We don't need to create debt, which I don't particularly enjoy anyway, but it also makes the discussion at town meeting a little more fruitful. Because when we're looking for borrowing money, it seems to be a bridge too far. So at any rate, we're looking at that. We have, as one selectman, and I certainly approach the subject with my fellow selectmen, I want to look at what we've got in our undesignated fund balance, because I think if we can get to the point where we're $200,000 or $300,000 away from a deal, then we'll just take it out of that and make it happen. I think we need to do something. Our liability picture hasn't changed. The need's always going to be there. And Barry of any of us should understand the cost of building has just gone crazy these days. I don't see it going down anytime
And
soon.
any materials to build it at that exorbitant price either, so.
Yeah.
Chip, what kind of a bogey number are we looking at possibly for the police this year?
Well, we're going to get, we put out an RFP for a construction management company. We haven't interviewed anybody, but I think 4 or 5 of them showed up to view the site.
Friday. They've showed up Friday on site. We have all the cards.
Yeah. So now we're going to hopefully get the bids in from them on what the cost of construction management is, which will give us the opportunity, once we have a construction manager, to really cost out the building. And now we'll know exactly what we need to get from them.
Well, let me ask you the same question a different way. What kind of a bogey number do you think we can tolerate?
I don't know that we can get it done for much less than $1.7 million.
Okay.
So, given and part of it's sort of, and although Gordon didn't have to deal with it when he was raising money for the library, because you did most of it through donations, which people tend to donate to the police department. But when we're looking at these grants, part of the design requirements is driven by the grant. The grant will say, yeah, we'll give you $250,000 provided the space does this,
Yeah.
or we'll give you $500,000 provided the space does this. So we have to sort of balance out the cost of that space or the need for that space against the grant possibility.
The purpose of my question is that at some point, this is the big elephant that's in the room. And at some point in our deliberations, not so much tonight because these are pretty much pro forma, but when we get to the large budget items, we're going to have to think about just what kind of a ceiling we're willing to accept over last year's, budgets. And in other words, we have to fit into our budget plan this kind of number, this 1.7 million or whatever it's going to be.
Well,
So that's why I'm asking the question, and you mentioned that you're reluctant to table items and so forth, but just when we get down to the nitty gritty, we need to get as close to that number as we can so that we can make this all work. Otherwise, we're going to show up at town meeting and.
Right, I don't think we're going into this with the idea that we're going to break the bank to get a police station.
Okay.
We've got money put away.
Yeah, right.
We know the
I
costs are
understand.
going up.
And it's laudable. That's good.
My driving force is to keep the tax rate the same, or perhaps
Okay.
1% higher.
I think that's excellent. I think that's our job, is to
If
try
it-
to keep
It
it
takes
stable.
until 2021 or 2022
Yeah.
to get the deal done, then it takes till 2022. I don't think there's any rush other than we've been at it for a long time, and as Barry was saying, costs aren't going down.
Yeah, right.
So, and I think if we take the term elephant in the room out of the deal, our job is to leave the community better off than we found it. And so I don't really see the police station as an elephant in the room. Unless we were to say, well, we've got $1.5 billion worth of taxable property, we can buy anything we want. I don't think that's, I've lived here a long time. That's never happened.
Yeah.
It isn't, you know, just because we're a town that's well off doesn't mean that we need to spend money in a crazy fashion. We have reduced the size of the building to a certain degree. Reorganized the spaces to try to make them more efficient and maintain the design element that would allow a board like this 20 years from now to expand on the police department if they needed to. And we haven't really addressed the energy element of it, but we're going to do that as well to make sure that it's a 21st century building as opposed to a 19th century building.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, what I'd like to do is to make all this work and have just little to no increase in the tax rate and just do the best we can. I mean, that's the goal.
I mean, we have a little bit of an increase because of the library. Everybody said that's, you know, we're unhappy.
And revenues are going to be a real wild card this year.
Well, my expectation is what's going to happen is exactly what we said was going to happen. It was going to go up for a year and then go back down. I mean, we need a steady marginal slope on our tax rate. But you won't get, unless we can make it happen under those conditions, you're not going to get a warrant article for the police station presented to you, so you're not going to have to worry about taking that.
Okay.
Well, on those grants, Chip, those grants specify they'll give you $250,000 as long as you do this, and then you have to weigh that against, well, we don't really want that. But if we do that and it costs X number of dollars, that gives us this much left over for the other stuff. Now, who figures that out as to whether that grant is
Makes sense.
that they want is too much? You can't take that one.
We've got our architectural firm, obviously, that's going to give us the pros and cons. And hopefully when we get the construction management company in, we'll get the actual dollar figure. I mean, if you're adding $500,000 in revenue, are you just spending the $500,000 on stuff that you didn't plan on spending? Then you don't need to do it. The other thing that I know that we're going to look into with our grant writers, well, even with the USDA we have to look at, but the labor costs are going to be higher because the federal money requires that you live up to the bacon, whatever that, something bacon, fair trade act, for labor act. I'm sorry.
We also have the advantages that we have a notebook that's that thick from the International Association Chiefs of Police, IACP. And there are 35,000 law enforcement agencies in this country, and that thing has been